So Isaac Newton said, if I can see farther than others, it's because I stand on the shoulders of the giants who came before me. And if you go downstairs and look at the plaque of the founding members, you will see the movers and shakers and the people who formed our region, how we live, how we work, and how we play. And that was the starting point of Shoulders of Giants. So Mike and I were talking, and he knows all the giants in the world, and we decided to come up with this series to honor the giants and also all the nonprofits. So today we're here to honor Michael Nasserian, and Mike is going to Mike is going to be conducting the interview. He's done hundreds of CEO interviews, and he was the publisher, one of the founder and publisher of the Puget Sound Business Journal for over 20 years. During his tenure at the Puget Sound Business Journal, it became the #1 business publication in the United States. And the thing that the most noteworthy thing about Mike is that the relationships that he's made and the relationships that he's created. I don't know anybody who is a connector like Mike, but it comes from a very, very special place. And so he has a whole slew of people through his lifetime that have become not only giants and people that he's connected, but people that have become true friends. So please help me welcome Mike Flynn.
Before I begin our conversation, I can view these as conversations, not interviews. Mike Wallace does interviews. We just have conversations. With Michael Nasserian, I want to share about our friendship and how it came about. We came to be friends because we were both investors in the same biotech company that, once it gets FDA approval, will produce a drug that will restore brain cells and reverse Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, and MS. And the reason that's important to both of us is his father died of Alzheimer's, and my wife, Betsy, has advanced Parkinson's. And so the need for this is in both of our, we're very, the first time he learned that I was the first investor in the company, I learned that he was among the most important of the investors. We set our situation in right position, right?
The following message was paid for by...
Now, before we begin, I want to introduce several people who are here with us today. First, my daughter. She likes to go by Megan Flynn instead of Chief Justice of the Oregon Supreme Court. So, and Michael, who once launched my Eastside Business Journal back when I was publisher of the PSBJ, and the things he did there. The Eastside wasn't really ready yet for a newspaper like that, but the things he did there included creating the 40 Under 40 event, which is a staple now every year of the business community. And finally, my grandson Connor, he's a PR guy, and he takes notes from me because sometimes I'm interviewing somebody that I really should do a column on. I can't both take the notes for the column and do the interview. So I told Connor when we did an interview with Todd Lewicki, I said, Connor, I need to do an interview and I need to do a column, I can't take notes on it. So would you sit there, I'll put you at the head table. So 2 days later, I get 3 single-spaced pages of every possible thing I could have wanted. It was one of the best interviews I ever did, try. Okay, I also want to introduce a couple other people. Lynn Brewer, who was my column this week, who wrote a guest column for me about her experience at Enron, including her time as a whistleblower and the book she wrote. So I appreciated that guest column. And radio host Paul Casey over here, who actually interviewed Michael several years ago because they did a column on Michael. And Paul Mo is savvy enough to read my columns and decide who he wants to interview.
Nice pipeline.
Finally, Ray Aspery, who has contracted with me to write a book about him because he's a Basque entrepreneur. Does anybody know what Basques are? So, we're working together, but I thought we'd do a biography, and I realized every time I ask you a question, I get 600 printable email back. This is dumb. It should just be, I'll help oversee his bio, so that's what we're doing. Okay, now on to our interview, okay? Ready for this? Not Mike Walls, okay?
I'm not nervous at all.
So I want to begin by asking you to share how you got to this country from your native Iran and brings us to you.
What, you mean that I am not American? Wow. Well, it's been a long journey. I came to US about 50 years ago. Before that, I did my high school and junior high school at UK. And from UK, went to Tehran for about 6-7 months, and then my dad brought me and my brother to US. So imagine I'm in UK every weekend. I'm in the Swiss Alps and having fun, and then I ended up in Brenham, Texas.
No, but I thought, please tell me how your father decided he wanted to get you out of the shop around.
Well, that was it. At the time, we didn't understand and understood it. It was just like nobody knew what's going on. But whoever was in the regime, it was working there, they understood something is happening. The revolution is coming, nobody knew when. It was just happening, but we didn't know the timing. So everybody that had the means, they would send their young ones out of the country, and that's how I ended up in US in around 1974.
You went to University of Texas, right?
Went from, University of Texas, went to Stanford. I did my BS in electrical engineering at University of Texas, went to Stanford to do my biomedical engineering, and I wanted to do cardiology, couldn't get it, so I went back to Texas to finish my master in biomedical engineering, specialized in cardiology, continued my PhD in application of computer science in medicine. And just like everybody else, I got deported out of the US. You know, it's just a normal thing. You guys are, everybody deported, have gone through this, right? And before I leave the country, I was looking for a job. So I was lucky to find a job in Texas Instruments. Some of you know about Texas Instruments through the calculators, but they were also one of the top contractors for military. So one day I'm working on cardiology and bringing the application of medicine into cardiology, and another day I'm designing military chipset sitting at Texas Instruments. I did everything to get that visa, green card, and so it was a very, very challenging time.
But somehow you met a guy named Steve Ballmer.
15, 16 years at Texas Instruments. My kids were 1 and 3, and there was just an array of health issues. And so we were looking for somewhere in US that we could raise kids in a better health environment. And we hired this demographic company, and I gave them about 15, 16 different things like child education, child health, all that. Can you believe they came with Portland and Seattle as number 1 and 2 as for child education and health and safety, security, all that was concerned. So me being in semiconductor, I applied for Intel. Halfway through the interview, Microsoft called. The rest is history.
Well, you met Ballmer.
Yes, we met at the time, the company was about 16, 17 employees. Bob was probably employee number 1, right? they hired me to just clean the windows and do the small things. From the beginning, I went into IT and then Windows. I was in Office and then Windows, and my last stint was I was partner architect for holographic lens, so the HoloLens, and then I left.
But you kind of went up the ladder at Microsoft. How did
Yes.
that happen?
Well, when you're short and ugly, you can just sneak through these ladders. It was interesting. Back then, I had a lot of passion for technology, and I wanted to show myself. So I was getting involved into anything possible, and one of the fast tracks that I was lucky to jump in was Microsoft products. At the time, Microsoft was software oriented. I started working on the Surface line of product, the computer and all that, and that helped me jump through, because imagine Microsoft, 90% of the Microsoft is on software, and now you have knowledge in hardware, so basically you can go a little higher.
But then you decided to leave Microsoft at some point. Is
Yeah.
there anything you can share about that, and why, and what you did as you left?
One of the things about big corporation, when they do something innovative, when they do something really high end, they find a way to screw it up. And this is not. You can see it. You can see the trend in Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Google, and all that. So I knew that one of the most innovative things that we did was HoloLens. We spent $9 billion on creating this holographic lens, and then Apple is doing the Apple Vision. Whatever we did when we screwed up, Apple is following the same footsteps. So I decided 2017 to leave, and the idea was to create an incubation for young talents to come in, learn holographic and augmented reality, virtual reality, and from there I could fund them and have them create startups. But before I go further, I wanted to ask you a question.
Then got into other businesses.
Yeah.
So how did it?
Before I answer that, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
All right? I want you to take a serious look around the room.
To what?
Take a serious look around the room.
Go like that?
Yeah, let's go and see that these people are here not for me. They all gathered here for you.
Oh, yeah, right.
Mike, what you are to this community, what the pillar of the community that you are, you don't realize it because you don't say it
I
loud
already
enough.
gave Katrina my money. I don't have
What we want to celebrate today is not only your birthday, but also the fact that you have been a shoulder of giant. You have been helping each one of us in different way and different means. And I am so grateful to be called your friend. I'm so grateful to be part of your life. And now that I see your daughter, I see your son, I know that every one of these people are so grateful to be your friend, to be in your life. So,
Hear, hear.
Surprise! So here's a very, very quick story. We've got a little family thing going on. My mom's been in the hospital. She's leaving while we're here. I get there yesterday afternoon, and my dad's on the phone with Katrina, and he's saying, he goes, I don't think I'm gonna come. I think I'm gonna have Paul do the interview. So I said, I don't think that's you know, you can take a couple of hours. It's not gonna be that big a deal. Mom hopefully won't even be at the hospital, but she'll be fine for that time period. You really should come. Oh, okay. But I'm not gonna stay afterwards for a drink with my friends. And I said, you have 24 people that you have corralled to have a birthday cocktail with you. How many times can you do that? So you have to do that too. Okay, I'll do that too. So this is all for you, Mr. Flynn.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mike. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. I told everybody who's close to me, no mention at the luncheon about my birthday.
That worked, didn't it?
Oh, listen.
This is actually, this is the interview that everybody wants to know a few things about Mike Flynn. So we're going to allow people to, if you want, you can, I won't say grill, you can ask any question that you'd like of Mike.
But not necessarily get an answer.
Well, maybe not a coherent one. But when you stand up, if you can just say who you are and how you know Mike, and then you can ask your question, and I'll go around the room if I can with the microphone, or be really loud like I am. Oh, piano, Mike.
You're gonna make a wish. You blow
We're
your
gonna sing happy birthday. Go on. You ready? Happy.
We did.
All right. Surprise.
Yeah. Hopefully there's nobody asking this question.
You're a runner. What was your fastest time? What? You're a runner. What was your fastest time?
At what age?
What ever in your lifetime you ran? How far? How fast?
I went to Gonzaga Prep and was third in the state, so I got a scholarship to Marquette. And I have my fastest time there, it's called 48.5. But then, after I got old, I learned about the senior games. And so I took Betsy, they're always in St. George, Utah. So I took Betsy, went to St. George, Utah, and I took 6 out of 24. So I was okay with that. I don't get any medals for 6. And then, for the last 10 years, I've gone each year. I've never, last 10 years I've gone every year, never been better than second. Frequently, 5th or 4th. But I have to share with you one fun story because I met a woman there who plays softball for a Denver women's team. And we checked in at the same time at a hotel, and my computer wasn't working, and I said, hey ma'am, do you know anything about computers? She said, yeah, I work for a software company. I said, could you come and fix my computer then when you're done? So she did. So we had breakfast, and then at the meet, I had a crummy meet, took 5th place. And she came over and she said, nice race. And I said, no, it wasn't. She said, you ran, didn't you? That's the greatest thing possible. That's it.
Wait, wasn't there something about a photo finish in that story?
No.
No? Darn it.
A photo finish means you're close.
Hey Mike, it's Natalie.
Oh.
I've known Mike for probably 25 years, and we met when I was a brand new PR executive at Fury Group. I had no clue what I was doing, and I just have to say that you were always so game when you were at the PSBJ for whatever ideas we brought you. And we used to create special sections back then, and we'd get the advertisers to pay for it. And I remember I came to you with an idea, and I had it all laid out on paper. And you looked at it, and you looked back up at me, and you said, well, this is just great. And even I knew it was awful, but you were always ready to cheer somebody else on. And I'll never forget, back in those days, we had a receptionist at the office. This is before when people still worked in an office, and we had a receptionist. And Mike has this wonderful, deep, booming voice. And every time he'd call me, my receptionist would buzz in and she'd say, God's on the phone. So I just wanna thank you, like so many other people, for the influence you've had on my life and so many others in this.
Thank you, dear.
Okay, so
You're Lynn Brewer.
I'm Lynn Brewer. So Katrina reaches out. I'm supposed to be in Africa today, and she says we're having a 85th birthday party for Mike. So you need to get everybody here in your Rolodex that knows him. So just to think about your column and the impact it has, I call the Oregon Supreme Court and say, can I speak to Justice Flynn? And she's not available, so I leave a message and say, it's about her dad. And so she calls me back. So if you think that I don't read your column or that I don't know how to act on Katrina's thing, Megan and Michael are here because I had an order from Katrina.
I have a good column story. So Katrina, we're on the phone kind of planning this, Michael, on Monday, or we're doing a Zoom call. And she goes, oh, it's too bad you can't get into Mike's constant contact, so we could just like send an email to everybody. And I said, Katrina, he has like 4,800 people on that list, many who he's never met. And she goes, oh, okay, that wouldn't be a great idea.
I did try to get into your Facebook, but you wouldn't give me your computer.
Okay. This is Ralph Amara. He and I were going to do a business journal in Baja Sur, California, and then came 2008 and a crash.
Well, I'm glad that you teed that up for me, because I've got a story for all of you that's never been told. So we were in Baja Sur, which is the southern part of the peninsula, and we were there investigating to what degree a business journal would make sense. We were together for about three or four days. We met up with a colleague down there. Now, here's the best part. Do you remember Mr. Toad's Wild Ride? Okay. Mike Flynn took me on a Mr. Mike Flynn wild ride from the southern tip of Baja all the way to the midpoint. And the only time we stopped was so that he could have a cup of coffee. So we found coffee for him in the strangest places. But at some point, I said to him, can I drive instead, please? And if you have any idea of what the roads are like in Baja, you probably have heard about the Baja 500, and we were running that whole gamut. And it was amazing that I survived, and I'm here to tell you that it was Mike Flynn's wild ride that I will never forget.
I feel like there's a lot more to that story.
Hi, I'm Rhina. And you know what, Mike, when I think of, business, it feels like you were already present before you really were involved. I mean, you're just synonymous with business, with the Columbia Tower Club. When I think of the Tower Club, I was on the board of the Tech Fuse, if you remember. That was in 2000 with Tiffany McCready, and you were around for everything. CEO Summit, I mean, over the years, is, you know, when I think of Seattle, Puget Sound Business Journal, you, and the Tower Club, it's like your family. When people think of you, you're, you know, one and the same, and I've enjoyed talking to you over the years, but I haven't seen as much lately as I would have liked to when I was really involved with the Tower Club. But I just want to say, Yom Haledet Sameach, which means happy birthday in Hebrew, and L'chaim, and to you. And if you just say, well, you can raise your glasses, everybody, and on 1, 2, 3, we'll just say, happy birthday. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday!
Thank you, dear.
Oh.
I just want to say a couple things. A scary call yesterday afternoon when Mike calls me and says, I may not be able to come to this today. Can you MC it? I'm like, what? Yes, I mean, I felt pressure. I mean, it was like, and then, thank God, 2 hours later he calls, I can do it. Oh, jeez. Thank you very much. So anyhow, just real briefly, I haven't known Mike a long time, 10 years ago, but I've known him for many years. And of course, the Puget Sound Business Journal was always the Bible in town to find things out. But the other thing, when I do have lunch with Mike, it's amazing the depth of information he has all over the place. I really can't keep up. I mean, seriously, he'll be talking about cancer research here, leukemia here, what's happening here, all the connections there. Next thing he's talking about it, squash tournaments in Las Vegas and bringing that to Seattle, or a basketball team over here. His enthusiasm is just contagious. And I gotta say, just a real inspiration. Sometimes I'm, saying, do I need to do something anymore? And I look at Mike, and he's out there doing things and still fighting, and I just admire him greatly. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Paul.
Woody House, Cable and House Ventures, was started in 1969. And Mike came to town a couple of years later to start the Puget Sound Business Journal. I think it was the early 90s, wasn't it?
It was 80.
Okay.
1980.
One day, somehow somebody wrote up an article about Cable and House Ventures. And Mike came by and introduced themselves, and we got to be very good friends. One day he came to my office and said, Woody, we need to have an Entrepreneur of the Year Awards arrangement. And at that time, Cable and House Ventures had actually had 2 huge dinners at the Spanish Ballroom. The first one was to honor Hunter Simpson, who his whole business career after he left IBM was physio control, and there used to be a library down the hall over here called the Simpson Library. He was the founder of the Tower Club. The next year, we decided to honor Trey, Bill Gates III, who many people know as Bill Gates Jr. now. But we put this dinner on, and I think we invited Mike to come to the dinner. I don't remember for sure. But he came to me the next year and said, we got to start an Entrepreneur of the Year Awards, and KPMG Pete Marwick is
Ernst & Young
would like to do it. And we will co-sponsor with them at the Puget Sound Business Journal with Cable and House join us. And we did, and that was the first start of what has led into some other things. But that's enough of the story. He started Entrepreneur of the Year.
Thanks, Will. No.
I'm Pam Pearson, and 1999 I moved from LA to Seattle to take over the general manager job at Keefer D. Fox. And just shortly after being there, the phone rang, and it's Mike Flynn wants to have lunch. And at the time was pitching me to become involved in the station with Carlton Junior Achievement and
myself involved, which I did, and it was a huge part of my life and the station's life for a long time. And we, of course, developed a friendship from that. And we would periodically get together to grab a lunch or grab coffee, because your mics go, go, go all the time, right? So it's always. So my husband, who's here, was traveling a lot during that time over to Asia, and sometimes, you know, he'd be gone, so my schedule was a little more open. And so Mike and I would grab lunch or coffee or something at that time, and I just remember the greatest line ever. We had just finished, and you had to go somewhere, and you grabbed your suitcase, and you were headed out the door at lunch, and you turned to me and said, "Call me next time your husband is out of town."
That's the safest one, I'm gonna tell you.
No more like that.
That was Pam Pearson who ran Channel 13. Folks, to get things together. That's really it.
More. Do you have something?
Ask him how he made one.
Oh.
Put him on the hot seat.
Oh. You've got 5 minutes to tell your life story.
Take that long.
Where were you born?
Missoula, Montana.
Where were you raised?
Spokane, Washington.
Where did your mother work when you were young?
In the grocery store.
But also as the lunchroom lady at St.
Oh,
Al's?
that's at school, yeah.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to graduate from undergrad at Gonzaga?
College? 7 years. But I had 2 years in the Marine Corps because I was going to be drafted otherwise, so there were reasons.
And Marquette had dropped their track program and you came back. And are you good at math?
That's right.
Are you good at math? Math.
All my indications were I was, but I said, no, I'm not. I hate math. There's nothing good about it. And finally, in my 7th year, I had to take my freshman math class. So I figured statistics is like when I do baseball and football and stuff. Statistics. And so I went, and I had to find a co-ed to sit behind. And it happened to be my wife.
So the 7th year in postponing freshman math was the reason that we exist. A lot of people don't know about your early history with UPI, and you were a time as the chief political reporter in Olympia. You could talk a little bit about that. And
Okay, we're 21 years for a company called UPI, and it happened to be, I went to Olympia at the time. Dan Evans was governor, Slade Gordon was attorney general, and my job, because things too hard to explain, I was a senior reporter at 27, so my job was to say thank you, Governor, and be the first one closest to him. And one day he came back. We had Monday morning and Tuesday morning and Thursday afternoon press conferences. And he came back Thursday afternoon, and he had something at lunch that must have resembled bad onions, because every time he opened his mouth, it's poured over me. So I said, thank you, Governor, and all the other press people were really pissed. They said, we weren't done yet. I said, you didn't have to sit where I was sitting. So in later years, when Dan and I became close, I told him that one time. And I did two times here with him in the last 5 years. I was trying to get hold of him last fall before his 99th birthday to see if we could do one for his 99th birthday, but he didn't live, he died before that. But the stories about Dan, he was such a cool guy, probably the best elected official in state history, and he deserved to be remembered. And so, what was it called, my division?
about Dan?
Yeah.
Well, just you've done several, but.
This was the first state in the Union to welcome South Vietnamese refugees. Because Dan said we're gonna do that, and he said Ralph Monroe, who was also a super elected official and a great guy, super friend of mine, and he sent Ralph down to Camp Pendleton, which was a holding place for, on the West Coast, for Vietnamese. And the reason I did a column is because 50 years ago this month was the fall of Saigon, and that was the end of the Vietnam War. Only it was April 30th, and I did the column on April 2nd. But things like Dan told Ralph to go down there, and Jerry Brown, believe it or not, a Democrat, said they ain't coming to my state. And so Evans said, ask that SOB if he knows what it says on the Statue of Liberty. It's a very cool, fun column to do. Sometimes it'll be fun. Anyway, that's it.
So we have a photo of you and Megan when she was very little, and Dan Jr., who's the same age as my sister, and it's kind of a fun photo of the four of them. So that I've always remembered that one. Let's see. Well, how did you get connected to the Business Journal world? A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, I see. Well, I worked for UPI. I was running the West Coast in San Francisco, and it was in danger of going out of business, and so I had to do something else. And so I heard about the San Francisco Business Journal and knew the guy who was making those decisions, and I said, if I can go back to Seattle, I'd happy to do that. So I did as editor of the San Francisco Business Journal. A year later, they sent me back to Seattle to be the Seattle Business Journal publisher, editor. And I decided the first thing is we need to change the name because it was obviously bigger than Seattle. So Puget Sound Business Journal. And it's gone along okay since then.
It's done okay. It's done okay.
Right, that's good.
What were one or two of the most favorite memories you have of your time at Business Journal?
Well, starting the events we did, because I thought it was important. Segments of the business community needed to celebrate themselves and their successes. So we did 40 Under 40, which you started. Women of Influence. I had friends, women friends who were in business, and I thought they deserved to be.
Mike in front of you.
Oh, I'm sorry. And the first Women of Influence was fun because a woman who was the treasurer of the Seattle Times was also a Gonzaga grad. So she and I got together occasionally, and I also honored the Asian woman who ran the Asian Weekly. And when she got up to give her talk, she said, "That's very clever of him. He honors two of his competitors." So, but the most interesting memory I have is of UPI because I covered hanging. As a 23-year-old, I had to go down to Walla Walla and cover the hanging because the woman who ran the office in Spokane did not want to go cover hanging. And I said, that's okay, I'll do it. And we met with the warden, and he talked about how sometimes people's heads come off because the noose isn't set right, and that they will be set right. And so there were 20 of us standing down, and on the platform above, the guy, Joseph Self was his name, he came out, he killed a cab driver in a $12 robbery, and they decided to hang him. And so he walked out with a priest, and last thing he said was, because the priest said, "I'll take care of you afterwards." He said to the warden, asked me if I said my prayers, warden, and he, just like that. And the interesting thing about hanging, I decided, it's not a bad way to go because he was dead instantly. So it's not a cruel and unusual punishment like some people like to say because there's no cruelty to it except the waiting for it. Anyway, that was the most interesting thing I think I ever did.
What year was that?
1963.
Wow.
There was one guy, there was an African American guy on death row at that point, and he was getting all kinds of visibility because he killed a 69-year-old woman and raped and murdered her. And it was just kind of a more terrible crime than killing somebody else. So he was, but King TV did a special on him, itself was just not very well known, and it wasn't such a big deal, so there was a lot of protesters outside Walla Walla for that. But he went anyway. The governor wasn't willing to commute it.
Back to Dan Evans just for a moment, he put a moratorium on the death penalty while he was governor, as I recall.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's interesting. Somebody may remember Mike Lowry, who was a good friend of mine. And he, was next to the last guy who was hanged, he refused to commute it. He said, I'm not going to interfere with the jury and the justice system, even though he was a very liberal Democrat. That was his viewpoint. He wasn't going to interfere. And I thought he deserved a lot of credit for that, because it would have been a lot easier as a liberal Democrat to say, no, we're not doing this. But that wasn't Lowry's way of doing things.
Anybody want to know the last 20 years?
Yeah.
So you retired from the Business Journal after 25 years, right?
2006.
So 20 years ago. That's very common for Mike Flynn, by the way. Very, very high laundry bill. So since then, you have been doing, things with Ralph and Katrina and all kinds of other people. What was when you retired, what did you think that you were going to do, and how has that been different than what you thought you were going to do?
Well, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I soon began a column. So I wrote a weekly column, had to go move out to the 4,000 people at that point at 4 p.m. on Wednesday. Can't be failing, you've got to meet deadlines. And so that seems like a really strange thing, to make a deadline at what time of the day of the week you're going to move your column. But I actually got people who I started to slow that down, and sometimes I was next morning, and I had several people call and say, what happened to the column? So, anyway, I did the column, and so I've gotten to have fun with the column, and the Tower Club events are cool, and meeting people here, because there's some very impressive members who don't wave their own flag. The flag has to be waved for them. And I don't know how much the Tower Club does as a good job of making sure people are aware of who is this person, who are these people, because they're just not egotistical people. Bob's a good example of that. Very important guy in the club. But anyway, that's it.
That's it.
Oh, who you are.
My name is Julia Music, and I'm just one of you who knows Mike Flynn. Okay? Now, I'd like everybody here who Mike Flynn has assisted personally, professionally, in business, introductions, or any other way, to stand up. Since you left the journal.
Thank you, dear. You're all great. I appreciate it.
So,
This was not expected. This was a little shock.
So Ralph actually coordinated, there were some people that were not able to make this because they were distant or otherwise occupied, but he was able to get some people on video. So there's a few people that couldn't be here that want to express something to you.
That's my track team on Marquette.
see it.
My brothers and me. My broker. My granddaughter. Now 27. Very cool.
So I think we're going to close with this, just because we don't want your head to be too big. Ralph told the story about driving with Mike. My best friend from high school has not yet written it, but he has had a book since high school in his head. And the title of it is called Driving with Mike Flynn. And amongst the things that Eric remembers fondly, so to my dad's credit, he would pick up every day. He'd pick me up on the way home from school, Eric and I would take the bus to his house, and he lived about a block from Garfield. And So we would drive, but my dad would drive us to meets and drive us all these places, and Eric's parents were busy and they were gonna make him take the bus, and so he was appreciative of that. But there's this unwritten rule that normally when the light turns red, you wait for the light to turn green. But Mike has something called right, left, right, or yeah, that's what it is, right, left, right. And so he would cut into a parking lot, cut across, and then take a free right, right? So that's one. And then the other is, he'd get upset, and he didn't swear around us, but he had this, oh, move it, sweet meat. That was one of your favorites. And then the other one that was the Eric thought was the most funny was he thought of this invention, not Eric, but my dad thought of this invention, and that was he wanted to get a huge, it'd have to be like clear so you could see through it, but colorful enough that people could see it, and it was a giant middle finger that you would press a button and flip up when somebody was doing something that merited a middle finger. And so
I know we could sell a lot of those.
there's actually about 12 others at least that he's kind of remembered in his head, and he tells me stories of these once in a while. And so if you have to drive with Mike, you might be better off to not. But we really appreciate the road that you've paved for all of us, and for making a difference in all the people that are in this room and all the people that couldn't make it in our lives. So thank you very much. Happy birthday.
In fact, I said I don't want any reference to my birthday.
That worked.
How'd that go for you?
Thank you all. That's very cool. Memorable.
Good. We love you, Mike. We love you, my average brother.
You have to go back up. You have to go back up and get your
I want to say one thing, Mike, and that is that statement about the red lights tells me so much about you, because most people stop at a red light.
Yeah.
You found a tangential way without breaking the law to get around all that, and that's what you do with everybody you approach. You find new perspectives and new ways of making it work.
That's good.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael, we came to hear you. The only thing I do want to ask you for the audience's sake is what now? We did a book. What now?
Back to you.
Your turn on this question.
This is the Michael Day, if you haven't noticed. There's a lot of
That was it. It's all you. That was it. My life doesn't have any meaning in front of you. Let's have the festivities.
How do you get off? How do you get off?
To our real giant.
Yeah.